If every time you sit down to draw a tattoo design and you scroll Pinterest for 20 minutes and then somehow end up on Instagram looking at your mate's vacation photos, then before you know it, an hour goes by, you've drawn absolutely nothing, you're staring at a blank screen, this video is going to fix that. By the end of this video, I'm going to give you a simple 3-step process that you can use to approach drawing any tattoo design, exactly like what we've given to the 8,000 plus students who have gone through our Artist Accelerator program. This one hits quite close to home, guys, because when I first started out my tattooing apprenticeship, I was a very, very slow drawer. I'd sometimes spend 10, sometimes up to 20 hours drawing a single piece, and because of that, I wasn't able to produce anywhere near as many designs as what I should have been able to. I made a lot less money in the beginning of my career than what I should have made, and it really did hold me back because I didn't have a repeatable system to approach drawing tattoo designs. I've just spent hours and hours in references. I am now giving that to you so you don't repeat my mistakes. The process is mapping, details, lines. Easy to remember, takes a bit of time to master. All right, so step one is to map out your shapes. Now we're gonna be working on a very simple rose design for this piece. And once you've laid out all of the structure, then we're gonna start putting details over the top. When I'm starting out, I'm gonna draw with quite a low opacity. I'm going to start off with a circle when I'm doing a rose. And then when I've got my circle, I'm gonna put in an axis. And then when I've got the axis, I'm gonna put in another circle, and that's gonna be like the rosebud. But you just wanna make sure that's a little bit higher up in that bigger circle. So then that way you've got that cool foreshortening effect. The petals at the front are gonna be bigger than the petals at the back. Now we've got our basic structure. What we wanna do now is start mapping out where all the individual petals are going to go. And at this point, we're just using ovals and lines and very basic shapes. I'm not trying to get anything exact. I just wanna map out where stuff is going to go so I can clean it up later. So at this point, you're just doing ovals. No one can even tell what you're drawing just yet. This is the part where the customer kind of looks at you cross-eyed and is wondering if you can even draw. But once you get to steps 2 and 3 and you start to refine and polish things, it starts looking a lot better. So what I see a lot of beginner artists do that you don't want to do is just go in there and blast it in with a black line, okay? I see a lot of beginner artists do this. They don't do any of that mapping stuff, okay? They just go straight in with a black pen marker, wherever it may be, or even just like a brush from Procreate, and they just try and one-shot it. They try and just draw all of the petals or whatever it is that they're drawing, no framework, no structure or anything like that. And they just try and, do it from scratch and just pray that it works out. And, it usually doesn't. So you always want to map stuff out first, okay? Because then you're not guessing. You know where all the shapes and the structure is supposed to go, and it makes the rest of the drawing a lot faster and a lot easier. By taking that extra bit of time to just do that little bit of a sketch in the beginning, it saves you hours later on down the road. Another reason why we do this super light is because when you do it light, you don't just have one chance to get the shape right. You can build it up over time, and you can keep refining it and just adding more and more values to those lines and changing and adjusting those shapes as you go, as opposed to just blasting it in and then having to erase it, start from the beginning. You just go in a circle for the entire design, and then it just takes way longer than what it should. Light sketch in the beginning, map out your shapes. It's just going to make everything easier down the road. I follow this exact same process in all the designs that I do. You can see here is a much bigger design that I'm working on. And before I got to this crisp black outline, there was a lot of prep work that went into that. You can see I started out with just like a lot of really loose kind of shapes. Some of these I think I've even rubbed out too. And it starts out very, very basic, and then it gets more refined and structured. That's when I kind of added some more layers to like the actual face itself. And then I added in the water. And instead of drawing the outline of the water, I've just got a really thick brush. I've just done individual little lines like this to mark out where each one of those little finger waves are going to go. Then once I'm ready to start putting in my lines, all the structures there, I just bring in my brush, and everything is dramatically easier because the structure's all there. And because the brush was nice and thick, I literally just used that as the guide for the thickness of each one of my finger waves. It's much, much easier and much more efficient than just trying to one-shot it and guess what these waves should look like, because that never actually works. Step 2 is to add the details. Now we've got all the foundation in place. Now we can start adding in the petals, the folds, the leaves, all that kind of stuff to really start to bring this thing alive. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new layer, okay, on top of this one that we've already done. I like to reduce the opacity just a little bit. That just gives me more room to adjust and change the shapes without getting too dark, because once it gets too dark, you can't really add any more values to it. You're going to start rubbing stuff out. And I'm still going to keep things super loose. I'm not trying to get things exact, but I do want to improve and refine the shapes. I'll usually make my brush a little bit smaller so that I can get a bit more detailed. Cool thing about roses too is like you can literally have them in almost any shape, and it always works. Because it's an organic thing, there's no rules or kind of limits to what you can do with the shapes, which makes them amazing for gap fillers. You can put a rose anywhere. then when it gets too dark or it gets too busy, again, I just lighten up that layer. And I just put another one on top of it, and then I refine it even further. Alright, so now that we've got a lot of the details in, you still just want to be careful with not going too far overboard. I'm still using a thick kind of brush, and I'm using tones to kind of just refine these shapes. I'm going to save like the really precise stuff when I do the outline layer. A mistake that a lot of beginners make is they'll try and put everything in this stage. They'll put like all those tiny little veins inside of the leaves. I just want to keep things kind of loose at the second stage, so that when I go into the final stage and I clean up the line work, that's when I get super precise with all the details and all the line weights. Step 3 is we now want to polish our line work, okay? Now at this point, we're just drawing over the details and the shapes that we've already put down. We're not introducing anything new into the drawing, and we're just committing to where everything is going to be in the design. So we're basically just tracing at this point. And we are done. That is how you go from I can't even draw a stick figure to having a tattooable design ready within 30 minutes. But wait, before you go off and start drawing your own designs, I want to make sure you don't fall into a trap that a lot of beginner artists do. So for this design specifically, we've just drawn it on a canvas because I wanted to demonstrate that 3-step process from how I go from shapes to details to polished line work. When I'm actually drawing a piece for a client, I will make sure that I draw that design over an image of the body part where it's going to be tattooed on. Okay, this just ensures that the design fits that particular shape of the body, it flows with the muscle structure, and we don't get any excessive wrapping where you can't see half the design because it curves around the leg or around the arm, which looks really, really bad. So when we are drawing a design for a client, the first thing we want to do is make sure that we've got an image of the body part the design is going to go on. Now, in terms of wrapping, it's okay for background elements to wrap, like leaves, water, flames, and things like that. You just don't want like half a portrait visible and the other half kind of just curves around the back of the arm, because that sucks. Little bits of overlapping is fine, but just not the main focal point of the tattoo. And what I also like to do is to ensure that the design has flow and it goes with the muscle structure, I draw in what's called flow lines. So here's where I'm going to get the gesture or what the flow of the muscle structure actually is. And I'm going to draw in these little S shapes. Doesn't matter what part of the body that you are tattooing on, you can always find this pattern or this shape inside of that limb. And when your design follows this pattern and it follows this flow, it's going to sit a lot better on the body than if you were to just draw it and ignore this pattern. So when you are designing a tattoo, you want to make sure that the piece follows those flow lines. You can see how this petal up the top mimics that S shape, and then you've also got like the stem down here that also mimics that as well. And then you've got the leaves pointing upwards like this, and then the leaves down here pointing downwards like this. After a while, you start to naturally do this, but the more intentional you are about it, even if the design isn't tattooed perfectly, it will still look good if it flows really well with the muscle structure. If you followed along with this video till this point, that's great, but I have to tell you, the improvement comes from the reps, not just understanding. So your assignment this week is to draw 3 tattoo designs every single day. And yes, I said every single day, not just when you're inspired. Inspiration's a scam, drawing is a habit. And with each drawing that you do, you want to focus on that 3-step process that I walked you through on this video, and it's going to make that design much, much easier to draw. And if you're new to drawing and you're struggling with putting the designs together, then I'd recommend reverse engineering designs from tattoo artists that you admire. What you want to do is recreate the basic design by mapping out where the shapes are and just try to recreate that design without tracing it. Don't worry about getting it 100% perfect. What you want to focus on is just mapping out where the shapes are. And then once you get that, the drawing becomes a hell of a lot easier. Now, if you followed along and you're thinking, cool, but I would actually like someone to look at my work and tell me what's wrong, that's exactly what we do inside of our private coaching program. The link for that is below this video as well. Click here to keep it going, and I'll see you in the next one.